sensitive and dignified management of any funeral, be it a traditional or a contemporary life-centered service, is dependent upon the expertise of a number of people, one of whom is the funeral director's assistant. Although directly responsible to the conductor on the day of the funeral, the tasks undertaken by an FDA in any given week are multifaceted, requiring a broad range of very specialised skills.
Hi, my name is Paul Gerrey. I'm a funeral director's assistant with Tobin Brothers Funerals. Every day is a different day with different groups of people, different situations, different locations. Every day is a new day with different scenarios. The company maintains that we have a fine attention to detail in every aspect of the job that we do. And for my part, my attention to detail is to have a premier vehicle looking at its best for the family, which means a well-cleaned, refreshing, smelling vehicle inside to make a pleasant experience for the family on the day.
With the vehicle he's been assigned to drive now in pristine condition, inside and out, he then turns his attention to the day sheet, which details the time and location of every funeral being conducted by the company that day, the personnel required and their specific duties, which range from placing a coffin or casket into a church, handing out mass books or orders of service to people on their arrival at a church or chapel, ensuring mourners' names are recorded in a memorial book, and attending to any special needs of those in attendance.
I've come in the morning and I have a look at the run sheet just to see what I've actually got to do for the day and ascertain where I need to travel. And I've looked here now and I have a funeral at St Joseph's in Melbourne this morning, going through to Springvale for burial after that. I also need to check the coffin and make sure that the coffin's clean and presentable as to what the family's ordered in the first place.
I often consider us as the shop front or the window of a company. So if your presentation and your vehicle is 100%, well that goes 100% towards that family then gaining your trust and accepting you into their home to take away their most precious item, which is their loved one, the person that's just died.
Families often thank me for the funeral service that they've done, but it's actually the families themselves that have actually created the memories and the stories and the picture themselves. I've just been there to help provide the tools needed to facilitate the service. Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Death has affected me personally at times, so I can understand where they are in their process. So I don't become desensitised. I can relate to their situation, although immediately I don't share their grief. I understand their grief and their process of where they're actually at.
Because it is a industry that does require perfection and doesn't really allow any mistakes to be made. Everyone is integral to maintaining perfection, and if we continually work as a team, the chain remains pretty strong. I know I have a few different roles. I can be a hearse driver one day, a coach driver another day, an audio-visual operator the next day, even webcasting the following day. I mean, it makes it interesting as well, interesting and varied.
One of the most important tasks undertaken by an FDA is what is known as the grave check, which takes place well before the arrival at the cemetery of the cortege. Using a measuring device, the FDA must ensure that the dimensions of the grave are not at odds with the dimensions of the coffin or casket. He or she must also satisfy themselves that if there's been heavy rain in the hours before the interment, it has not caused soil erosion, which could impede the lowering of a coffin or casket.
We're actually here an hour earlier of the funeral, just to check the grave to make sure that it's safe and that coffin will actually fit. I've actually measured the grave, which incorporates the length and the width. The grave, as you can see today, is nice and dry, which is good. This is called a lowering device. The coffin is carried over the grave by the family, placed down onto the device, and these two straps suspend the coffin over the grave until such time as the interment takes place. And when the minister then determines that the committal's to take place, the conductor will then lift the lever on the end of the coffin. The coffin will slowly lower itself into the grave, hence the committal take place. So they'll slowly lower right down to the bottom of the grave and then stop. After the committal takes place, family may come forward at that stage as a final gesture to place a flower or some sand into the ground, just to say their final goodbyes.
If you can relate to a position, it hits home the worst. If a woman dies and is pretty much the same age as your wife and they have children left, and if you can put yourself in that position, then yeah, it can be emotionally hard to deal with yourself. When I first started doing the job, it was a job that was a service that I could do for servicing people that actually probably keeps me here, that rewards me. When somebody comes up after I do a task for them and they say thank you very much, that in itself is a great reward.
But of course, burial is just one of a number of forms of disposition. And where the deceased coffin is to be entombed in a mausoleum, there are certain protocols and safety precautions that must be observed.
What we're here for now is at the mausoleum. This is where they have an entombment into a concrete vault which is actually in the wall. The process is quite different here. The coffin comes out of the hearse and is placed onto the mechanical device you see situated below the vault. When then comes time for the entombment and the committal to take place, a conductor and the cemetery staff stand on the security frame either side of the device, and it's lifted up and the coffin is then slowly placed into the vault for entombment. Here we have a vault which already has a monument on it, which brings a degree of difficulty on it because the vault actually reduces the length of the grave, so therefore the coffin can't go straight down into the grave. It quite often needs to be lowered at an angle. If you can imagine, we're here at the graveside and we're just about to conduct a service and the minister's said the prayers. We have 150 people around the graveside ready to say goodbye to this person to pay their last respects. The coffin is very heavy and we can't lower the coffin straight into the grave. We need to try with the utmost reverence and dignity to lower the coffin down at a nice pace, nice and gently into its final resting spot into the vault.
In any given week, an FDA can be found behind the wheel of a hearse, coach or transfer vehicle. The transfer vehicle is so named because it is into this vehicle that a deceased person is transferred into our care from a private residence, hospital, nursing home or the coroner's court. This assignment brings FDA's face-to-face with death and grief at its very rawest stage. A situation in which they must not only efficiently transport a deceased person from the place of death to a transfer vehicle, but do so in a sensitive, empathetic and dignified manner.
On the van you've got an undetermined destination for the day. You've got no idea where you're going to head for the day, but we await instructions from our coordinator.
Coordination van 1.
1 receiving.
Yeah, van 1, we have a deceased transfer to nursing home.
Roger, can you give me the details of the address and
Give me the instructions.
we'll get more instructions to move a coffin through to our Ringwood branch for a viewing, which is going to happen at 2 o'clock that afternoon, so that needs to be gone through to there. So we get readiness for the coffin, we load the coffin up and all the paperwork that we need to take with that, through to Ringwood to set that up for a viewing so that the family can come in that later on in the afternoon to view their loved one. In total, we've done about 20 transfers that day, which when you think of it, the greater picture there, that's 20 families that are affected deeply. So there's a greater impact that happens on my job in the bigger picture when you look at the effect that's happened to the families that are a result of the work that I do. The question I'm often asked is, how do I do what I do and how rewarding I find doing what I do? And it's quite easy because I can actually carry out a task which is helpful for the family through the process of the funeral, whether I'm driving the morning coach, driving to the service, whether I'm driving the hearse, or whether I'm actually doing the transfer from a family home. And the family coming up to me afterwards and thanking me for the delicate way in which we carried out their mum or dad out of the house is very rewarding to me.
We probably meet at the raw heart of things because we're directly going to a house to transfer a person directly where death occurred, and that's generally amongst family and friends who are deeply affected emotionally. Could be any one of a dozen different situations. That could be a 90-year-old lady and the family are really happy that she's had a really good and peaceful life. On the opposite, it could be a 10-year-old child and a very traumatic thing for a parent with their first child just died. The first question on most people's lips is, where are you taking mum? And a lot of people have never had anything to do with the funeral before, so they just really want to know what happens in general. And I just put them at ease that when a funeral planner contacts them, the funeral planner will go through the whole process and organise everything for them and put their mind at ease once that process actually happens.
A wedding takes 12 months, or if longer. A funeral is in about 4 days and 3 days sometimes, and to be able to culminate and put all that together and to have the family come up to me afterwards and thank me is a very rewarding reason to come to work every day.
In the next episode of the series, we'll take a look at a day in the life of embalmer Jennifer Birch. With 18 years of industry experience behind her, Jennifer will show us just what's involved in caring for and embalming a deceased person.